there, friends. I'm Mary Knabe. Welcome to my Stampin' Piece studio today on Thursday. What is today? The 27th, July 27th. Gosh, July's just about over. July 31st is the last day to earn bonus days coupons with Stampin' Up. You earn a $5 coupon to use on purchases in August for every $50 you spend this month, July. So feel free to take advantage of that. If you have any questions about it or you need assistance ordering, please let me know. And thank you for accommodating me on this time change from Thursdays at 2 to 11 a.m. That's just for today. Andrea and John have a really full day and asked me to stay with the baby for part of that. So after this Facebook Live, I'll be heading over to their house for the afternoon. And you know, when they call on Grandma, Grandma wants to say yes. So thank you. Can't wait to spend my afternoon with Riley. All right. On our last Facebook Live, I featured the Berry Harvest stamp set, and the technique taught was spotlighting. So if you've missed that, the video is here on Stampin' Piece with Mary Knabe on Facebook, and it will be posted to my blog tomorrow, the 28th. So today I'm using the same stamp set, and I'm going to teach you a different technique with that. So let me flip my camera around now and we'll get started right away. While I'm switching my camera, would you please be so kind as to share this video and invite others to join us this afternoon or this morning? Okay, as you can see, I have lots of products out, ready to be used. I've got my stamp, my background stamp mounted on my clear block. I've got some embossing materials. This is my embossing toolkit. I've got aqua painters. I've got my Versamark ink to go with my embossing, and then I've got some re-inkers. So you can see we have a lot happening today, and the first thing I'm going to do is use my embossing buddy from that embossing toolkit. That toolkit comes with all of this. Okay, not the embossing powders, you buy those separately, but it comes with all of this, and I love it. I love it. It's super convenient to use and very, very helpful. I'm first starting off with this embossing buddy, and what this does is remove any static from our cardstock or paper so that we don't get embossing powder sticking and heating where we don't want it to be. So then I'm going to ink up my big old background stamp. And if you were with me on Monday's Facebook Live, I explained to you that this is a much easier method than trying to hold this big old clear block and stamp in the ink pad. It's easier to hold and manipulate this way, and it's easier to make sure you have ink everywhere that you need it to be on that stamp. Now my cardstock is smaller than the stamp, but I'm still putting ink all the way around just to be sure I have enough on there. Then I'm going to take a piece of scrap paper. It can be anything. You can see mine is well used. And I'm just going to rub my flat hands across that so I know that that cardstock has picked up all the ink. Plus, it's the scrap paper's picking up the ink around the outside of my cardstock. And now I'm just going to lift it off like that. And it's going to be hard for you to see because Versamark ink is clear. So you're probably getting a little bit of a look right now, but it is clear. And then I'm going to add clear embossing powder. You can see I'm putting on a lot. And this container, the bottom screws off, and then I use that as a funnel to put that powder back in my jar. So it looks pretty good. I'm just going to tap it on the back a little bit. And now it's ready to be heated. A word of caution. When you are working with heat embossing, you want to stamp and then get your powder on as soon as you can. And then, before you heat it, remove that powder from your work surface. You don't need it anywhere near you when you start up your heat tool. Also, if you use overhead fans or fans directed at your workspace in any way, you also want to turn off those fans before you open up that powder. It's very, very fine, and even the slightest fan breeze will make it go everywhere. So now I'm ready to heat this so that the embossing powder melts. I love heat embossing. Honestly, it feels like magic every single time. As soon as I start to see that it's melting and it's getting glossy, it's like magic. I love it. So fun. It's going to be hard for you to see, being that this is clear ink, but it is starting to melt and get that glossy look. I'm going to flip the way I'm holding this. And it really happens pretty quickly. It takes a few moments for your heat tool to heat up completely. Our heat tool does have two speeds, high and low. I'm using it on high, and typically that's most often where I use it. And you just want to keep moving your heat tool around. You don't want to hold it in any one place, just because you don't want to heat it one area so much that it kind of burns your paper. I've never had it happen with this heat tool, but if you have one of our very old heat tools, that got a lot hotter, and it was easier to burn the paper by holding it in just one place. I want to make sure that's good where I had my tweezers. Okay, that looks awesome. Takes a moment for it to dry. I'm going over it, making sure the whole image looks glossy, because now I'm going to be doing some water painting. I'm just going to turn it like this. So now I'm ready for my inks and my water painters. I'm going to, remember on Monday's Facebook Live, I was using Berry Burst, Stampin' Blends, and the Bubble Bath Stampin' Blends together. And then when I was coloring leaves, I used Granny Apple Green and Lemon Lime Twist together. So I'm doing pretty much the same thing here. You don't need a lot of re-inker. And if you're somebody that loves our ink pads but doesn't buy re-inkers until you need them, this is just giving you one more reason why I highly suggest that when people purchase their ink pads, they also purchase the re-inker at the same time. Okay, these re-inkers have more than one use. They're not just for re-inking your ink pads, as you'll see today. So when you purchase the water painters, there are three. There's a wide brush, a medium, and then a finer brush. And these are all filled with water. I will tell you, if you've gotten these and you ever had trouble opening them, I don't know why, but they actually screw the opposite of what you think they're going to. You know, I've always learned righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. These are the opposite. So I've had people come to me saying, I can't open mine, it won't open. And that's what it is. They screw backwards for whatever reason. Okay, I'm going to use just the fine tip, and I'm just going to squeeze until I get a drop of water or two. I'm not going to squeeze while I'm working on the paper, okay? And I'm just going to bring in some of that Berry Burst color, and I'm just dabbing along in here. It's quick and easy. If you thought, oh, there's no way I can do this, Mary, I'm not working with water painters. Oh, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. It's easy, especially with this embossed resist technique. And of course, I'm sure you can see now why we call it the emboss resist technique, because the ink falls into the white spaces. But let me see if I can make this a little brighter for you. The ink falls into the white spaces, but it resists the embossed areas. And I'll give you a better look at that as we move on. And you can do full on Berry Burst color. I like to water it down just a little bit. And again, I am not squeezing my aqua painter or my water painter when I'm going over the paper. The only time I squeezed it was when I was putting water droplets on that clear block. If you have a little palette, plastic palette of some kind, you can use that. But honestly, just doing a few drops on your clear blocks works fabulously. Put some there. Trying to look around the edges to see if there are any areas of berries that I want to be sure to get. And that's why I have a paper towel underneath too, because some of those are going right to the edge. And I want to clean off my brush a little bit, so I'm just going to give it a squeeze, push out some of that water with that deep Berry Burst color. And then I'm going to move over here and kind of mix the bubble bath with a little bit of the Berry Burst. I'm kind of using that little bit lighter color to fill in just a little bit more on my raspberries. You might not be able to see the difference in the shades on this video, but trust me, it's there. If you look around the outside edges of each raspberry, you'll probably be able to see it a little bit better. And I want to give a shout out to Jenny Graber, who's watching now, and she's on my team. And she has offered to post the item numbers and prices along with catalog page numbers for products I'm featuring in my Facebook Lives whenever she is available to watch. So kudos to Jenny. I appreciate your help, and wow, just volunteering to do that, she made my day when she asked if that would be okay. I was like, sure. I'm always open to a little help. Okay, and I'm pretty much going to stop right there. I'm going to now switch over to my greens. I've got Granny Apple Green and Lemon Lime Twist, and there are, whoops, that's not the one I want. That's that wide brush. And actually I can show you. The wide brush is great for doing like a watercolor wash background. That's what I did here with some watercolor paper. I even tried blending some colors, just playing around with that wide brush. But here, there is more to fill in with the leaves. So I'm gonna try this medium-sized brush. Again, I'm putting some water droplets here, and I'm gonna start with the Granny Apple Green. It's a little darker. And just kind of get like the centers of the leaves. Look, and trust me, I am no artist whatsoever. I am not an artist at all. I'm a crafter, and to me, I see that as being two very different things. But this is just the technique to make me feel like an artist. So you can do it too. Trust me, everybody can do this technique. And you'll have the pleasure of feeling like your very own artist. Oh, I need to put some more pinks in there, I see. I'm also just kind of dabbing at the leaves at the top of the berries. You can see here I dipped more right into the dot of the ink itself, whereas it wasn't quite as diluted with the water, and that's fine too. It's nice to have variations of the same shade. And you don't have to put a lot on, just dab it and brush it. Remember, I'm not at all squeezing the water painter. I'm just holding it as I'm dabbing the color on. Try to do some of these stems. This is a nice sketched image. So the great thing about using a sketched image, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to stay in the lines perfectly, and it still works out great. Just don't overthink it, okay, folks? Do not overthink it. That's where stress and frustration set in, and we don't need that in stamping, right? For many of us, stamping is our therapy, our saving grace, our escape from everyday life, right? Noticed how I turned my cardstock, just making it a little bit easier for me to get in on these different stems and such. Again, I'm really just still working with the dark areas. Yeah, it looks like I got most of them. Checking to see that I got the tops, those leaves on top of the berries. Okay, and now I'm going to move on to, let me just move this a second. Now I'm going to move on to the lemon lime twist. And again, just putting a few drops of water. So I'm squeezing that water from my, I keep saying aqua painter because that's what they used to be called, right? But now water painter. And I can mix the two shades as well. Oh, I like how Julie said that stamping and creating is a way to, an outlet for her to calm her spirits. Oh, I love, perfectly said. And that kind of goes hand in hand with why I named my business Stampin' Peace, because of the joy and the peace I feel when I'm creating and sharing it with others, and that I hope I can pass on that feeling to others, whether they're creating with me or enjoying the cards I send to them. And it doesn't hurt to go right back over the areas you already did with the granny apple green, because they'll just mix together. I will point out that I am using regular basic white cardstock. Now, most often when we are doing something like this with water painters, most often we're using watercolor paper. But I wanted to show you, you don't always have to do it on watercolor paper. And I do have an example of a card that I made with this stamp, Berry Burst, and did the same technique, but on watercolor paper. So you'll get, after we put this card together, I'll show you that one, and you'll get a good glimpse of how you can get different looks using different papers. And you can see I don't have to be real precise. It's going pretty quickly. Okay, that looks pretty good. Did I get everything? Oh, there was, I want to go back in. Okay, I'm going to push this aside and I'll clean that brush later. Always trying to be aware of your time, but I'm going to pick up some of that Berry Burst color because I noticed that I missed a good part of that raspberry. I think I did pretty good on all the others though. Let me do a quick check. Here is where too, if you can see I have all different shades in here, lighter and darker. If you want something darker, go ahead and add more and just pick it up from the darker, more intense shades, okay? All right, I'm going to stop there. As a final step, and you want to make sure you're using a clean part of your paper towel, you can see it's clean, I'm just going to gently lay that over my cardstock and press with a flat hand, just to pick up any ink that might be left or puddling on my paper. And if I hold this up now, you can see how nicely it resisted the heat embossing, right? You can see all the different outlines and veins, the little sections of the berries. So just interesting and fun. Yes, a really cool result. So let's finish off our card. This piece of basic white that I use to paint on is, and normally I would just give this a little bit more time to dry than I am with this demonstration right now. And also your paper may curl, so you might want to give it, some extra adhesive. But the basic white is 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. My Granny Apple green layer is 4 7/8 by 3 5/8. And I'm going to layer that on a Berry Burst card base, standard size card base, 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, and I scored it 4 1/4 on the long side. I'm going to put it right in the center there. I'm adding 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of basic white to the inside. And now we need to finish off with a sentiment. For that, I'm going to be using the double oval punch. I've got my Berry Burst ink ready to go and a couple pieces of scrap paper, and I'm using the Thinking of You from the Wonderful Thoughts bundle. This is awesome. It has some really, really great sentiments, and it's got a die to go with, to coordinate with every one of those sentiment stamps. Plus it's got some extras like these that you can use for different labels, and even some backgrounds behind some of the others, as well as some additional pieces to enhance the die set. All right, so first, I need my Stampin' Pierce mat because I'm using a photopolymer set. We need that extra cushion when we're using photopolymer stamps. And I'm first going to punch my Berry Burst cardstock while I was giving my basic white a moment to dry. Basic white and Very Vanilla cardstocks will take just a few seconds, a moment longer to for the ink to dry than our other ink pads. And it still happens so fast you may not even notice that, but just in case, if I can go on, move to another step while that's happening, I do it. But usually you probably won't even notice. You can see, I keep looking at that, it's just so pretty. Seeing all the variations of color. Plus, and when you think about it, I use 2 colors, right? Pink and green. But we see all kinds of shades of those pinks and greens because I used 4 different ink refills. I don't know why I can't get this centered. Come on, Mary. Okay, that looks pretty good, I think. All right, so I can put this on there. I don't know, I think it could use just a little bit more. So I'm going to add, I think it could use a strip of the Granny Apple green behind it. Kind of set it up, help it pop. Just gonna do You know what? I'm going to do a 3/4 inch strip, I think. And I'm going to trim that down a little bit to 4 inches. And I'm going to punch with my Banner's Pick-a-Punch. This is one of my all-time favorite punches, especially for sentiments, especially for just an extra little layer behind our sentiment, or maybe even an image that we pop up. Oh yeah, I like that better. What do you think? With or without the Granny Apple Green strip? Either way is correct, but, and I have one more thought here before we put that on. And let's see if we can put a little bit of silver trim behind. So what I'm going to do is first adhere my strip, and I'm doing this with multi-purpose glue in case I need to move it around a bit, side to side or higher or lower. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is put lots of adhesive, almost to cover this whole piece on the back. And I'm just going to randomly put some of this silver trim behind it. Doesn't have to be anything fancy or perfect. In fact, it looks a little better when it is random, I would say. And I just like to have an even number of loops on each side, or the same number of loops, not even number, same number of loops on each side. You can pull them a little bigger, smaller if you want. And some people like to trim the ends so that you don't see any of these ends. I kind of like it. So then, you know, I'm going to see if I can slant this a little, instead of it going straight up and down. And I'm going to go over this with some large dimensionals, just because I want to be sure that those that silver trim is not pulled out. If somebody would, you know, pull the card from the envelope and they catch their finger on one of the loops or something like that, I want to make sure that it doesn't pull out. I think that's pretty good. Boy, Jenny, you are fast. You are very fast with posting all those products, and you're going way above and beyond my expectations. I love it. You are fabulous. I appreciate you. Okay, there you have it. What do you think? One lucky person is going to receive this card today. Okay, isn't that pretty? Before I pull out the sample I made with the watercolor paper, I'm going to tell you to, if you are interested in receiving, having your name put into a drawing to receive this pretty Thinking of You card, type in the comments now, emboss, resist, EMBOSS, emboss, resist, RESIST, embossed resist. Debbie, you like that trim added? I think so too. It just draws a little more attention to the sentiment. Plus, it's another bit of elegance. Emboss resist. Now here is, remember I said you can do the same technique on different types of paper and get different results. So this is the same as what I just did. This is emboss resist and coloring with the water painters on basic white cardstock. This one is done on watercolor paper. Now watercolor paper, let me pull it out. And you may have seen me use this before, and I'll be using it in the future. I do like to play with the watercolor paper and the water painters. But it's thicker and it has a texture to it. Okay? It's got a texture to it. And it's because of that texture and that thickness, and it's an all cotton paper, that it gives us a different result. So, and it's funny because I like the leaves this way, but I don't care for the berries quite as much on the watercolor paper. Here too, I'll tell you, I embossed in white clear. I just stamped Thinking of You on a plain piece of watercolor paper. I stamped it with the Versamark, and then I heat embossed it with clear powder. And then I took my wide brush, dipped it in the color, and just went over it. I let it dry and punched it out. So that's another way to add some variety to your card making, your water resist technique, etc. Okay. Do you have a preference? Do you like it better with the plain white paper, or do you like it better on the watercolor paper? You get a deeper color. I did the exact same thing, exact same inks. In fact, I didn't even add more ink to do either one of these. But so pretty, so pretty. I love them both. But I think for this particular stamp, Berry Harvest, I do like it on the white better. Some images, especially if they're, larger single images, I like better with the watercolor paper. Okay, Lori Hall says she likes, I'm guessing it's because of the brightness maybe. This comes out a little more subtle. Okay. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's card making demonstration. I hope you have picked up some tips perhaps for heat embossing, the embossed resist. Lori says, yes, it's a bit sharper. I will say that. It is a bit sharper, whereas this is more subtle. Isn't it interesting? Change out the paper and you get a different look. And Lori says she prefers that one. Awesome. All right, something for everybody then, right? But I hope you picked up some good tips today, either with the heat embossing, the emboss resist technique, and just maybe different ways to add a little pizzazz to your cards. Have a great day, everybody. I know the rest of my day is going to be great because I will be spending much of it with baby Riley. And then I will be back here later today, this evening probably, working in my studio, and a full day of work in the studio tomorrow. And I've already started planning for next week's Facebook Live. Talk to you soon. Happy stamping always. Thank you so much for being a part of my Stampin' Peace community.